Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 94 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network. I am here tonight. I'm your host, Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict, here tonight with Scott Sidlow at Scott_Sidlow. Scott, how you doing? Before we get into the guest, how you doing tonight?
What's up? No need for me to talk. We have four amazing people. Let's get to them.
Yes, we do. We did a pre-NFL draft Superflex rookie mock with the three of us on top of the stream here, me, Scott, and Mike Bauer. And we brought three more great guests on to do a six-man mock post-draft. We're going to see the differences and see where we have these guys. I know there's tons of mock drafts out there right now, but if there's ever a year where you want to hear as many different mock drafts as possible, I think it might be this one. So, and we got some really smart people plus me doing it. So I'll just introduce them all real fast. I'll let you guys plug all your crap at the end. I'm just gonna, we have Mike Bauer at Rewind CEO. Mike, say hi.
Hi, Mike.
Shane is the worst. Shane Manila. Shane, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just reading these Apple reviews, and I got a mean one. But I'm okay. How you doing tonight?
Good. I'm sorry you got a mean review there. Got Jeff
That
Bell.
was me. I apologize.
Jeff Bell at for whom J Bell tolls. Jeff, say hi.
Yo, thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And finally, Matt Price at Matt Price FF. Matt, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, so we got the introductions out of the way. We're also going to try and get the news out of the way real quick. We felt we had to at least mention some of the stuff here because there was some big news.
You wanted to mention Eagle stuff. I get it.
That's true. That is
right.
part of it. The big news was that A.J. Brown was traded to the Eagles. And just for the 18th pick and a third rounder, we got two Eagles fans on the podcast with me. Well, besides me.
Okay, got it.
So I was gonna throw this one to those two. Shane, what are your are you down on AJ Brown like some people are coming to the Eagles?
No, I actually dropped an article for Fantasy Data on this. And it's pretty funny because in like the writer's room, like I immediately went in there and I was like, this one's mine. No one gets this. Because my Avi picture in that profile picture in that chat happened to be Jalen Reagor with the ball bouncing off his face mask.
Classic.
Yeah. So no, I like it. I like it for Jalen Hurts. Look, the Eagles wanted to throw the ball last year. They tried. It didn't work, right? They quickly moved away from it. Michael probably hates it because he hates Jalen Hurts, but that's okay. I think AJ Brown's the perfect type of receiver you need for Jalen Hurts. Giant catch radius, and he does a lot of damage after you just get him the ball. So just throw it in his general vicinity and then let him do what he does, which is run people over. Like he had one of the leaders in 50-yard receptions last year. I don't even know what the air yards on those were, but I'm gonna guess they were like 3 yards a pop because like every play I saw that he had a long play was just him running through dudes and scaring them for their lives.
That's my whole thing. People want to rip Hurts. I mean, Hurts can throw it for 7 yards and then AJ Brown can take it another 30, 40, 50 and we'll be good. But Mike, what are your thoughts as my other fellow Eagle fan?
Shane, what were you just drinking out of there? What was
some Sutter Home White Zinfandel.
So we're
Classy,
going
man.
right from the bottle.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so I'm a single man, right? So you have to be practical. I don't have a dishwasher. It's only me that does dishes. Like there's no one to pass off that task to ever. So if I don't have to use a dish, I'm not going to use a dish.
We have an unnecessary dish rule in the house, in that if you use a dish that doesn't absolutely need to be washed, you have to wash it. So I'm with you on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is an Eagles fan at heart right there. I love the A.J. Brown trade. They stole him from Tennessee, a first and a third. For the record, I do not hate Jalen Hurts. Seems like a great guy, one of the hardest workers on the team. He has that dog mentality that Nick Sirianni loves so much. He does have deficiencies in the passing game, which, hey, guess what? Newsflash, as a quarterback, that is the worst place to have deficiencies in your game. So this is the Jalen Hurts no excuses tour 2022. He's either going to win me over or he's going to be one of the best backups in the NFL. And that's it. I do not hate him. Not want to see any ill will to him. I don't want to see him tear his ACL. I want to see him succeed, but I also want to see him get better. So, and I'm concerned that at the end of this past season, we still don't know what we have when you have a guy that started a full slate of games.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add to points both of you made. Shane mentioned about the early volume last year. They had 35 passes in 5 of the first 7 games. I would argue that's probably more what Sirianni wants to do. So for the volume concerns, I mean, they might not throw it 35 plus times every game, but I think it's going to be a lot more than you saw in the second half last year. And that's why you bring in an AJ Brown. And if Hurts is not the guy, it'll be somebody else next year. So all the people worried about Hurts, I think that's for Dynasty. That's a silly concern as well, because they have definitely the means to get another quarterback. So,
and he could still be a starter even if the Eagles would move on. He'll most likely be a starter in the NFL.
Oh, I agree.
So his value, if he's not with the Eagles, he could go somewhere that's better tailored to him. So it could actually increase. So
yeah, I mean, if he just does what he did last year, he's an improvement on a bunch of other teams in the league. So
I agree.
So the other news is kind of tied together the other two things, which was as Scott would say, Hallmark Brown, and he did change it on the sheet, was traded to the Cardinals for a first round pick with a third, I believe. But still not a crazy amount more than the Eagles paid for AJ Brown. Just saying. And then later on this week, Andrea Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games for PEDs. So those two kind of go together. So I'll go to the other two since we talked to the Eagles fans about the AJ Brown trade. Jeff, what are your thoughts on either of these, both of these? What are you thinking with Hollywood and Hopkins?
I love this move for Hollywood. You know, he's moving to a higher volume passing offense. He's got a great relationship with Kyler Murray. I think both of them kind of have something to prove in this. And so this is a great landing spot for Hollywood Brown. Great move for the Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm very curious if he even comes close to recovering the value that he's lost in Dynasty, because I think it's an uphill climb, because if Rondale Moore breaks out at all, and if it becomes a natural fit between Hollywood Brown and Kyler Murray, I think that you're really just he falls even further than maybe he's sitting right now.
Yeah, I think Hopkins' value is getting close to dust at this point. He was buoyed by touchdowns a lot last year anyway. He's going to miss the first 6 games. He's going to be 30. But Matt, thoughts on Hopkins, thoughts on Hollywood?
I mean, Hopkins, if he's basically dead in Dynasty, right? I mean, if you are a contender, can you get him for an early second right now? Maybe a second and a third. I don't think it even would cost you a first necessarily at this
I don't
point.
think so.
So, you know, it could be a nice contributor down the stretch for a competing team. You know, you want to throw them on there for the stretch run. But for Hollywood, I think you got to love it. I mean, the target volume, we'll see. I think he is definitely going to eat in the first 6 weeks or so while Hopkins is out. But, you know, he was 10th in the league in targets last season, 146, I believe, last year. And believe it or not, the Ravens actually threw a little bit more than Arizona did last season. I don't think that's going to continue, because in 2020, when Lamar was healthy the entire season, I think they were last in passing attempts per game. So we'll see. I love the chemistry, though, the rapport that he probably already still has with Kyler Murray from college. So it's a nice reunion. And it's not a move that's going to hurt Rondale Moore's chances to maybe do something this year. I keep holding out hope for that guy. But yeah, love the move for Hollywood. And, you know, I think Bateman is the benefactor of this, obviously. You know,
right.
Is he going to get all 146 targets? I don't know. Andrew is clearly the one there. He had 153 last season. So it'll be interesting to see how much more volume Bateman gets and how that lines up with what the Ravens want to do in 2022.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So like I said, I want to kind of get into the mock as quick as we can. So we did touch on everything. We're going to get into that first. I mentioned to the guys, I'm gonna go through. We did this 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, with me, Mike, and Scott, and did 2 rounds like we're going to do tonight. I'm just going to read through these real quick for some laughs. The 101 was Breece Hall, as you would expect. 102, Malik Willis. I don't even fault that one because everyone had Malik Willis 102, but there's some doozies later. 103, Garrett Wilson. 104, Kenneth Walker. Still not too bad. 105, Drake London. 6, Burks. 7, Jameson. 8, Pickett, which is through 8. That's not too bad. 9, Spiller. 10, Matt Corral. I did say I was praying for draft capital. I think that was me. 111 Chris Olave, value there.
Oh yeah, that's right, baby.
112 Jahan Dotson. Again, still not too bad, but it's the second round where I think we get some bad ones here. So
yeah, it gets crazy.
Christian Watson, 202 Sky Moore, still pretty good. 203 Rashad White, 204 David Bell, which is, I think, still where he should be, but we'll get into that later. Yeah. 205 Desmond Ritter, 206. This actually wasn't as bad as I remember. Trey McBride.
Actually, really, wow.
207
We're good.
George Pickens. Whoever made that pick was a value. I think that was me.
Okay, you know it was you.
And these last handful are the bad ones. 208 Carson Strong. That didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
209 John Mechie. That's actually not too bad either. He's probably going in that late second, early third range.
I made that pick. I want to throw that out there.
Yeah. 210 Sam Howell. That one's not so good.
About around early there. Yep.
211 Justin Ross. Also not so good.
My heart breaks for that kid, though.
Although I do, since he signed with the Chiefs, I still see him getting drafted in those fourth
he
rounds.
signed as soon as that news came out. A guy that was on the clock at like 205 and drafted him immediately. And I was like,
oh, wow.
okay, buddy, enjoy that pick, and thanks for letting the next player fall to me.
Good for him. He was like, I'm going to get my guy now that he actually has. He's on
this
team.
This is the get your guy draft. So when
Yes.
you can take an undrafted free agent in the second round, you got to do it.
True.
And then 212, Mike took Jerome Ford, which is not so great right now, as he's like fourth string in Cleveland.
For now.
Yeah. For now.
Ernest Johnson.
Okay, so obviously we got six guys here. We're going to do a six-man super flex 1.75 tight end premium rookie mock. As we talked about before the show, I'm not sure those words super flex or tight end premium matter too much for this draft, but especially since we're only going 2 rounds. But we got Matt at the 101, Bauer at 2, Jeff at 3, Shane at 4, myself at 5, and Scott will take 6, and then we'll just keep rotating through 2 rounds. So let's start off, Matt, with the 101.
Yeah, it's obviously an easy pick. I think he's in a tier by himself. Breece Hall is going to be the 101 and 9 out of 10 drafts, 9.5 out of 10 drafts. I think it's fine to take your favorite wide receiver here, but I think somebody in your league probably wants to move up from Hall. If you can find a reasonable trade partner and you don't want the running back, then I think you trade down. But if you keep it, I think it's the 101 regardless of the state of your roster.
Yeah,
Or
I've only seen one draft where he didn't go 101. One of the TA leagues that I'm in, some guy had the first 4 picks and took 4 receivers. So Breece Hall went at the 105.
Oh.
So that was interesting.
I thought he was doing that just to mess with ADP at the beginning of that story, and then it ended in tragedy when Breece Hall was never picked. Okay, interesting approach, but okay.
Yeah, I think it was like London, and the 4th receiver was Moore. He took Moore at 104 over.
Oh
Breece
wow.
Hall. Yeah, Scott Moore.
Not do that.
But anyway,
which league?
I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head.
Oh,
TA1, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Hey, whoever that was, I'm disappointed in you.
Okay,
Matt.
so,
Disappointed.
so now it's Bauer at the 102.
So I do want to say that, Matt, I agree with your pick, Breece Hall at the 101. It's pretty consensus, although I did see on Twitter somebody say that if you take Breece Hall at the 101, there's a reason why you have the 101, and I don't know. Hopefully no one that was in here said that. Anyone?
That's not necessarily true, though. I mean, there are plenty of instances
satirical,
where you
right?
trade for a random first-round pick and it becomes the 101. That's happened to me like 3 or 4 times in the last decade. So
That's
Also, even if you're
my point.
rebuilding, you just take the best player. Then you trade
And
Breece
you
Hall
get-
for a
later.
bunch.
he has one big game and you trade him for 2 firsts instead of the 1.
Exactly. And that's the type of analysis that I hate. Just throwing that out there. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just stick to my board, and I'm going to take Garrett Wilson at the 1-2. I am a Zach Wilson stan, as the youth call it. I do not hate him like other people do, and I do think that he's still going to get peppered with targets. The Jets are still not a good football team. Sorry, Jets fans, both of you. They're going to have to throw to be competitive, especially with Buffalo in the division, Jeffrey. So can I call you Jeffrey? Is that okay?
You can call me whatever you want to call me, Michael. Yeah, I'm good with anything. So
His Twitter handle says Jeff, for whom the Jeff No, it doesn't say
No,
J Bell.
no, it
You gotta
doesn't.
call him J Bell.
Damn it,
Says
Shane.
J-Bell.
There's a play on words going on there. Yeah, so I'm up next with the 103, and I think this is probably about the easiest pick in the draft because I think that you're probably going to see Brees Hall go 1, and then you're probably going to see either Garrett Wilson or Drake London go 2, and so I'm taking the other guy that's going to be available if I'm at the 103, which is Drake London in this instance. So I'll go ahead and go there.
Okay, well, we know. Is anybody else anti-Drake London like me, or is it just me?
He's my
I
one.
was anti before landing spot. I think with volume, he's going to be fine. Like he was number 4 of the top, maybe even 5 of the top 5 pre-draft. But number 1 wide receiver draft capital. I don't know. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I mean,
He's not my 1, but he's
Yeah, he's not my 1 either. I mean, I moved him up, but he's still like my 4. So I've been down on Drake London throughout the process.
Can I say one thing about Drake London?
Sure.
Do you remember when we all knocked AJ Brown down because Marcus Mariota was his quarterback? The Marcus Mariota that's in Atlanta now is not the Marcus Mariota that was in Tennessee a few years ago. From what I saw when he played for the Raiders, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, wherever the hell the Raiders came from. Process better, much more accurate than we saw in Tennessee. And Desmond Ridder is not going to be a slouch either, I don't think, if he's the guy. And if not, hey, man, Felipe Franks is there. So, either way, I think Drake London.
You got to get that in every show. Good work, Bar. Good work.
Listen, I'm going to be the world's biggest Felipe Franks. I'm gonna manifest this for you guys.
I have like 4 shares of him. If that
Why
counts
do you
for
hate the
anything.
Falcons, man? I mean, why do you hate Kyle Pitts? Why do you hate Jake London? That's my question.
They were already trying him at tight end, I think, at the end of last year. So, he's going to be an Eagle before you know it. So there you go.
Perfect. Shane, we got to find a way to sneak Grant Calcaterra in here somewhere.
Okay, so I'm taking Grant Calcaterra at 104. Eagles love to run 12 personnel. And if you're in a points per block league, dude, you're set up. You're golden. Man, I know this isn't what you should do, but I don't really care. I'm doing my rankings right now, my Dynasty rankings. I'm taking Treylon Burks.
Yep.
Next gentleman behind me can kind of take Kenneth Walker, who is, I'll let him talk about him. But Treylon Burks, we hate him because his 40 time, he was slow. I'm air quoting that. But as one of our fellow DLF writers, Matt, pointed out, Bruce Mattson at Metric Scout, he was actually top 6 in the class in speed score because he's 6'2" and 220 goddamn pounds. If you'd like an AJ Brown clone, that's what it looks like. Him. I know he wasn't adept at running all types of super, like every route in college. I'm pretty sure that Tennessee, when they drafted him, knows that. So I don't think they're going to, give him more than he can handle. I think they know how they're going to play to his strengths. And I think he's just going to absolutely crush. I mean, he's going to be a 1-for-1 AJ Brown replacement. Now, obviously, there's only one AJ Brown. So we're probably looking at closer to wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1. But in this class, I'll take that.
I feel like the difference between him and Brown is Brown came in as a pretty darn good route runner, I would say, and that's not something we say about Burks. But that said, he's still my wide receiver 1 in this class, pretty easily.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring this up now then because I was going to mention this after we maybe got through a couple more receivers. Matt mentioned his. Who's everybody? I wanted to obviously Bauer's wide receiver 1 is Garrett Wilson. Where do you guys stand, Sidlow? I'll start with you on who's
London.
your wide receiver 1.
Drake
It's London. What about you, Shane?
Wilson.
And Jeff?
I've got Wilson, then London's my 2. So
Okay, so we got 3. Did you said yours was Burks, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got 3 different guys there. I am also Wilson, so
it's the same tier. Like I don't have Walker
Same team,
anywhere.
right. None of
those
them are head and
guys,
shoulders
so.
above anybody else.
Correct.
I think we all agree on that.
So we're definitely drafting differently than most of what I've seen because Kenneth Walker's been like just a slam dunk at 102 if 103.
Which I
Yes.
don't get at all.
Which-
I
I understand it. It's just I like these wide receivers better, so I'm just going to go BPA regardless of positional scarcity.
And I'm with you, Shane, because I'm up at the 105 and I'm still not going Walker. So I mean, we'll get to him in probably a minute here too, but I'm going Jameson Williams. I love Jameson Williams. I mentioned this. I think I picked him on our pre-draft mock wherever he fell. Just electrifying player, got the speed, but he's not just a speed guy. Had that amazing season his last year at Alabama. Obviously, the injury is a bit of a concern. But if you did earn the 105 or higher and you're picking Jameson Williams, that might not be such a big deal anyway. In Dynasty, it might help you. If you're still rebuilding, not getting those points. But yeah, I just think he's going to be really, really good. And it's not going to be great year one. He's not going to start the season. He's got Jared Goff as his quarterback, who can't really take full advantage of his talents. But Jared Goff's not going to be there next year. So I love getting him here at 105. And Scott, that brings us to you at the 106.
Yeah, so this is not quite the disgusted pit in my stomach feeling I felt in Trade Addicts 5 when I came on the clock at 106 and Drake London was still available. And I about clicked fast as possible and refrained and realized I'm trying to build a roster here. And actually went with Kenny Pickett at that spot, as I will do here, 106, not because I believe in Kenny Pickett or anything. It's just more so I believe in my strategy more than I believe in my player evaluation. So I'm going to go ahead and take the quarterback that if he's Kirk Cousins, I can live with it and I can trade him for probably any one of these receivers, most likely in the future. And so that is my strategy to rebuild in most cases, super flex leagues. I'm going to rebuild through the quarterback position, and that's where I'm going to go.
And that brings me to another question I wanted to throw out to the group, which is, where are you taking Kenny Pickett? Because I think that's kind of up in the air for some people. I've seen him go as high as one. I think I saw him only go 103.
Wow.
And seen him go as late as I think like 109 or 110. So we'll go clockwise here. Mike, where are you taking Pickett?
Like the 106 to 109 range feels about right for him. You know what I mean? I think especially in a super flex draft, people automatically assume super flex equals quarterback. It does not, because there are times, like for example, there was a team that started Andy Dalton in the NFL last year, and he might not have gotten as many points as a running back or a wide receiver. So you have to watch with that. You know what I mean? So there are guys that I want.
This is Pittsburgh, though, we're talking about. There's plenty of weapons around him. It's not like he's playing in some barren organization that doesn't know how to draft or build a roster.
Right. I'm just saying that, Superflex doesn't need to be two quarterback. That's my point. And there's guys that I like their long-term outlook better than Kenny Pickett. And I like Kenny Pickett, but we see the way the teams are with quarterbacks anymore. I mean, contracts don't mean anything. Draft capital doesn't mean anything. So they chew them up and spit them out. But like I said, the 1.6-1.9 range, somewhere in there, I'm comfortable with that.
So Shane, Mike gave a 4-pick range. Narrow it down a little for the people.
Oh yeah. Is Sky Moore on the board still?
Well, no, I'm asking where
no, and I'm telling you, is Sky Moore still available?
Yes.
Sky Moore's getting drafted over him. Okay. Is George Pickens? He's in between like Sky Moore, Christian Watson, and George Pickens for me. I don't think he's very good. Mostly
the first time.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't produce in college until he was 33 years old. Like, I'm not impressed by that. You were playing kids, like literal children, and you're a grown man. Like, I don't even know if legally he was allowed to play with them. Someone should look into that. So I don't like him even a little bit. But that said, I will take him at the end of the first round and then, hope that he flashes for a little bit and then immediately trade him like everyone should have done with Daniel Jones when he got any hype whatsoever.
Exactly.
Toronto Dave in the chat said I won't have any Pickett. I can't do it. And so far that's been me. I've had some.
Doesn't feel good, but
I have no Pickett yet. I got about 14
works.
drafts, no Pickett. But Jeff, where I'm interested to hear your answer on this because we're in a group chat together where you were kind of ripping Pickett earlier today. So where are you taking Pickett?
Well, I think the best way to describe where I have Pickett ranked as somebody's going to take him before I am, but I've got him more mid-second, and I'm putting him at quarterback 3. Like I don't think the hit rate for late first-round quarterbacks is horrendous, and you really look back, and the only guys that have really mattered in the late first are Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, and so I'm still willing to take Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder just because if one of those guys hit, like I know that I've got a quarterback 1 or a fringe quarterback 1, whereas Kenny Pickett, even if he hits, it's like you're hoping to get Kirk Cousins, and that's just not a pick that I'm going to make.
Okay, so Matt, what about you? You gonna be
I'm a
that
little
feisty?
bit, I guess I'm in the middle of everybody. I'm in the 110, 111 range after all those top receivers are gone, basically. I don't know. I don't necessarily like the player, but there's things about him to like. He comes into the league having read complicated defenses. You can clearly see he makes progressions down the field. He's a little bit mobile, the fake slide, all that kind of stuff. But he's going to have to be, because Pittsburgh offensive line was terrible last year, and they didn't do anything to fix it this year. So that's the biggest concern for me. That said, we've made a lot of mistakes in Dynasty Superflex leagues by fading first round quarterbacks, no matter where they are. And, sometimes that's come back to bite us. I can remember when Justin Herbert, everybody hated him, and he was going in the 1-9, 110 range in some rookie drafts. And he's certainly not saying he's Justin Herbert or anything, but I don't think it's out of
the joke, Matt. I was just going to say, so what I heard is Kenny Pickett is Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's not it,
dare, Rocky.
So I don't know. I'm fine with them as after all of the guys we really like are gone. I think that's when I'm ready. It depends on where Shane's talking about taking Sky Moore, I guess. But after that, Moore, Watson, Dotson range, I think is fine.
I think I want to really clarify that then. So it's, again, as I said, my player evaluation, I'm not going to trust that 100%. What I'm going to trust is my knowledge and experience in this game, knowing that these first round quarterbacks, typically their value insulation is far better than these other positions. We see a guy come out and have a couple bad games and, he's Jalen Reagor, and he's done. You can't do anything with him, right? Whereas you see a quarterback who basically sat the whole year, Trey Lance, and his value went up. So,
to that point, though, and I've talked about this with other people, I wonder about that with this class, though. Everybody was so down on them to begin with. Are they going to be insulated? Well, mainly Pickett, because he went in the first round. Is he going to be insulated?
I think it's different with Pickett because I don't know. I know I'm projecting here, but he's from Pittsburgh, all that whole story. He's a Pittsburgh Steeler now after his whole life in Pittsburgh. I feel like they're going to give him 2 to 3 years at a minimum. Whereas that may not be the case with, one of the second or third round guys.
And I think you're right. I just wonder if the community is just going to be if Pickett has, say Pickett starts 12, 11, 10 games and looks horrible. I just think they're going to be we thought this was a trash class. You played like trash. We're not valuing you at all. You don't get any value insulation. Sorry, Kenny and baby hands.
Is this floor lower than Wilson's is? In terms of value, as bad as Wilson was, it's still going to cost you a first round pick to get Wilson at this point.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if he's the start, which I heard someone point out that maybe he could get Rosened on another podcast, and so
I don't think they're going to be that bad though.
Yeah, assuming he still looks like the starter next year, I would guess he probably is still worth the first, no matter what he does. But I guess we'll see.
So if you're paying the 111, 112, there's nowhere.
Then you're still getting at least holding value. Yeah.
Right.
So Matt, we're back up to you at the 107 after that Kenny Pickett discussion.
I'll take Chris Olave. I like the landing spot. The quarterback maybe is an issue, but I like that he lands with a team that already has an alpha wide receiver. There's certainly a concern whether or not Michael Thomas can still play, but they both went to Ohio State. I like that whole mentorship narrative between those two. And honestly, if Michael Thomas is bad or even just not himself, then I feel like Olave could lead that team in targets, maybe even in year one. So I like the landing spot for Olave. I know a lot has been made of the not an early declare, all that kind of stuff. Not, I don't know, not an athletic marvel, but I think he's fast enough and runs good enough routes to get it done, even with Winston in that situation.
Yeah, and I personally feel like kind of Olave is the end of the tier of the wide receivers. Would you guys agree with that, or do you guys have somebody we haven't picked above Olave?
No, yeah, that's what the
not
big five.
But I think in the tier, I've got somebody in the same tier.
You've
not
got
above,
some other guys.
though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will move on to the 108, which is Mike.
So, I'll definitely take Kenneth Walker. Then coming back to me at the 108,
you can have him.
I don't think he's a lock to start the season right away. I think a lot of people are trying to manifest that he's going to. And again, I know that these are a lot of these top tier guys here, but they're not going to be starters right away. So don't panic sell when these guys don't come out and pop off right away. You know what I mean? Breece Hall might not have 100 yards and a touchdown his first game. Just might not happen. So everyone just relax. Don't panic sell. But if you do, panic sell these guys to me. That's fine. So I'll take Kenneth Walker. I like the landing spot. They're going to need to run the ball because Russell Wilson's not there anymore. And they're going to put some semblance of a quarterback tandem out there with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. That is, sorry, Seattle fans, that is going to be rough for you guys. So pound the ball with Kenneth Walker and hope for the best up there in Seattle.
Yeah, this is about as low as you're going to see him go. I actually did see him go in another TA draft today. He actually did go at 108. I have not seen him go lower in any league. A lot of receivers. Pickett also actually went in the 106 in that draft. I believe it was TA4. But yeah, I have my worries about Pickett. I know everyone says he can catch, but when a guy only catches 13 balls his entire career in college, that scares me. So, and he went to a team that does not throw the ball to the running backs a lot.
Chris Carson in 2 of his 3 healthy seasons was targeted over 40 times. Just saying. Just saying. You can get some targets. Not a lot.
That's okay. Yeah, that's not. Yeah,
Drew Lock will throw it over his head.
Drew Lock has no touch on that ball. He's not going to throw.
That's right. Different guy.
Maybe you can get Walker running downfield. Maybe then he can just degaff it up there.
Geno Smith didn't play too bad when he played last year, right? I mean,
Geno could. Yeah.
I mean, remember
he's better than Lock. I think probably.
I think so too. And there was people saying that Geno Smith was playing well enough to maybe they'll just keep him as a starter even when Russ is healthy, which was a little preposterous.
Okay.
People say crazy things.
Baker's going to be there, so let's just not even talk about Locke.
Okay, so Jeff, you are up at the 109.
Yeah, so you know how the Lions got suspended for turning their pick in too quick? I would be suspended here in this instance for turning my pick in too quick. I think there's a clear top 8 in this class, and I think there's a tier break at 8, and I got Sky Moore in there, so I'm going to take him here. And I think that if you got the 109, you're really praying for this scenario to happen, that somebody takes Kenny Pickett and drops either Olave or Sky Moore or Walker, some of those guys 100%. To you. But and if you're sitting there and you're if you got a pick in the late first and you're listening to this and your draft's not up yet, I would do everything in my power to get into the top 8, or I would be moving out completely. And I've done that this week. I had a handful of,
it's brutal.
Yeah. I had a handful of picks, I kind of realized that this a couple weeks ago, and I moved a couple for 23 first, or I used some later picks and I moved up to 108. So I knew that I was going to be sitting in this tier.
Okay, so Shane, you are up at the 110.
Yeah, so this is where it starts to get a little fun. You get creative and paint outside the numbers. I was kind of hoping Sky Moore was going to fall to me there. Thanks. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to go with Jim Cook. I know Michael hates this pick, if I remember correctly. I think he's going to be an absolute target monster for Buffalo. I think they've pretty much shown you that they don't trust Devin Singletary for whatever reason. Their eyes don't work correctly is my guess, because Devin Singletary does nothing but produce when he's on the field. True. That's a story for another day. So I'm going to take James Cook here. I know he's not, very good at the whole running in between the tackles thing. Again, I think Buffalo knows that, and they're going to utilize him properly.
Okay, so I don't know how everybody else feels about this James Cook pick, but I wanted to bring him up when he came up. I wanted to talk about him because I don't get it. He is a pass catcher, but I mean, he only had one season over 20 catches. I didn't think he was some amazing weapon in the passing game. That's his role. He does well, and he occasionally breaks one. And I think he's almost a 0 in the run game. I know he averaged 6 yards a carry. It's going to happen when you pop one once in a while, and you only run it like 50, 60, 70 times. So I'm just curious what you think. What is James Cook going to be? I don't see him ever getting 70 catches in a season, especially with the Bills. Running quarterbacks are known for not dumping it off to the running backs pretty much. And the Bills haven't had a high share of throwing into the running back.
Singletary had 50 targets the last 2 seasons. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to take all of those, but if you split those up, it's not.
But if you're talking about guys getting his value solely from the passing.
Oh, he won't.
Solely, but
He won't.
mostly from the passing game.
But he'll probably have 120 rushing attempts, and I'm guessing somewhere north of 90 targets. Like, he's a legit, he can run routes. Like, he's not going to be a dump off option. Like, they're going to split him out wide, and the defense is going to be like, oh. And this is part of what they did when they drafted the other kid in the 5th round. I heard they were talking about it on The Athletic, where they just keep drafting these like matchup problems for other teams, where you're basically like, oh crap, what do we do? I forget. I forget the kid's name, but yeah. And he's like, hey, he's like, not obviously not Debo, but he plays like Debo, like where they're just going to throw these guys out there and go, good luck. You know, Steph Diggs is a conventional wide receiver, just happens to be like a really good one. And then you're going to have to deal with this running back. Like, who are you covering them with? Are you going to stick a cornerback on him? Because you're pretty much going to have to, because you can run routes like a wide out.
So I'm Jeff, go.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, I don't know, it's a meme at this point, but who's the next Debo? But it's one of those that what teams are trying to look is get multiple with the same personnel. And James Cook is a chess piece that plays in that. You're able to get multiple formations with using the same base personnel. You're able to slot him out. The Bills run a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, and if you're able to use him as a wide receiver in 4 wide receiver sets or move him into the backfield, and you just create those mismatches with the defense, and that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a chess piece like that. And I think he's going to, if he's touching the ball 12, 13 times a game in the Buffalo offense, and most of those are in the passing game, there's the floor to get to running back 1, it's like 15 points PPR points. Like, it is very achievable. And I think I think people don't realize how quickly a pass catching back and a major pass catching factor back can get to that point. We saw it. He's not Kamara, but we know, like, early in Kamara's career, he was really only getting touches through the passing game, and he was doing pretty okay. And so I think that getting into this offense, part of it's also buying into good offenses and getting pieces of those that are going to be used in the game plan. And I think that's basically what you're getting here with James Cook. And when you're looking at this back half of the first round where things are just really falling off, and you're really you're hopeful to land anything that can contribute to your roster, that can be a starter even in a 10-spot dynasty league, I think that he's a guy that he can fill into a running back rotation or a flex spot pretty easily.
So I guess, you can answer this, Jeff, Shane, anybody who wants to answer. Just what do you see? I like you said, he's not Kamara, but so what is he? Who is he? What is the comp that you can make to James Cook, like that I can say, okay, that's why I'm going to draft this guy, even this week class at the back end of the first? Like fantasy production.
I don't think there is a comp for him. I think all of the things that Jeff and Shane said are true, but I think his floor is like somebody you're never comfortable starting ever. Like, you don't want to click that box. You're just not sure. But I think he's going to have a bunch of big weeks. I just don't know how you're ever going to predict it.
That's my thing too. That's another thing I thought about him as well, is that he's going to be one of those guys where, he's going to take one. He's going to take a 50-yard pass to the house or something and going to have a good week, and then, but you don't know when that's going to come. That's the kind of guy I see him being. That's why I'm a little more reluctant to take him this high. But
in the first round, I don't think I would.
Rocky, I just want to say real quick, a lot of things that we don't think about are the other narratives that are going on, the other things that are happening within the organization. Dable's gone. Okay. And so there's a new offensive coordinator. His name is Ken Dorsey. He was there. He saw what worked. He's likely to keep a lot of that in place, right? But he's his own man. He's a human with an agenda, with an ego. We don't know who he is or what his plans are or what he's going with. But I can tell you that as a national, championship winning quarterback, his running backs were Najee Davenport, Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, Jarrett Payton. This dude played with loaded backfields and with multiple different types of personnel. And so could he bring some of that to the NFL with him? Do we not see this a lot of times with players that become coaches or guys that come from other systems? They're going to bring certain things with them. And so that's definitely a factor. I think they want Josh Allen to continue doing what he does, obviously, who wouldn't, but also they know that he can't take that abuse. Think about Cam Newton. How long did he do that? And he was a beast, right? These are big guys. We all know this game. We all know these guys are going to get worn down. They don't want Josh Allen doing that forever. They got a lot of money invested in him. They want him dumping it off a few times here and there. If they can save him a few hits a game, they're definitely going to do that. So you see them getting these pieces. There's a reason for it.
Yeah, and just real quick, as a Bills fan, I think everything that they've done this offseason has been to get in multiple different formations. I think bringing in OJ Howard, they didn't have a second tight end active last year. They couldn't play 12 personnel. They were really stuck to playing either 11 personnel or running with 4 wide receivers. And so I think that you can see scenarios where they're running 12 personnel with James Cook as the running back. They flex the 2 tight ends to one side. They move James Cook to the slot or the other side, and they bring Diggs maybe into the backfield, things like that. They're trying to open up just different creativity within the playbook, and I think that Cook is one of those pieces.
Yeah, and then I get it, and I just don't see the ceiling as I think high as some of you guys do, but in defense of the pick, I mean, a lot of guys that we're going to be picking now have floors that could be below the bottom of the earth here. So,
but you're missing,
including the guy I'm about to pick.
But so, you missed the best comp, Dylan McNanny.
Yeah,
comped him.
Dalvin Cook, they share a mother. So, but the guy I'm going to pick has also has a floor that could be like 0, which is Christian Watson. But I really like the size speed combo. I think this is another guy I picked in the pre-draft market. He's raw. His route tree was not extensive. They didn't pass the ball a lot at his college, so. There's a lot of projection there, but he's going to Aaron Rodgers. He's going to Green Bay, and there just seems to be a ton of talent there, a ton of athleticism, and I'm willing to bet on that at 111. I did like a lot what I saw. I think I mentioned on the last pod that we did this. Pretty much, again, much lower level competition than a lot of these guys, but he had 1 or 2 wow plays almost every single game I watched. So the talent is just too enticing. At 111, I'm willing to take the risks. So. Anybody want to chime in on Christian Watson before we move on to Sidlow's pick? That's a no. Okay.
I can. As a Packer fan, if you want my perspective, I mean, he's like he's the player that if you only watch the highlights of, you're like, I'm ready. Let's go with this guy. But 13% drop rate. I mean, it's just.
Oh yeah, he definitely has his faults. Yeah.
No suddenness or short area quickness in his game. Really, like it's all just speed and size. And if that doesn't. He wasn't overly dominant in terms of physicality at FCFS. So I question that, translating to the NFL, he couldn't do it against lesser competition. He's a big receiver that plays small, and that always scares me. That said, the upside is tantalizing. I wish they had taken Sky Moore instead, or even George Pickens instead. But I think Watson, the ceiling is there, but like you said, the floor is it's lava, basically, right?
Yeah, I think it just illustrates what's going on with this class. It just feels like we're missing like 4 guys out of this class, like especially compared to last year. It's like we're missing 4 first-round picks, and you kind of once you get past that first 8, you're really just kind of dealing within a tier of 8 different guys that you could see one guy goes 1-9 in your draft or 110 in your draft, and he goes 205 in another draft. Yep. And this is the reality of the situation. They're all very dangerous, but yeah, I think his ceiling. I mean, reality, he could be out there. He's 6'4", runs a 4.3. He could be mossing guys next year, and we could be sitting here a year from now saying, "Why did we all fade the super athletic 6'4" wide receiver playing with Aaron Rodgers in a draft that we all kind of hated?" So that's just one of those things.
And I wonder. I was going to couple things. I was going to make a joke, but now I don't want to because Jeff was saying smart stuff. And I do wonder if the NFL is going to get smarter about how they use players, right? Like, because they seem, at least some coaches have, right? Like there used to be this old like, no, you need to do everything well or you're not getting on the field, as opposed to, well, this guy is an absolute monster, and Jeff said mossing people. You know what? Use him that way. Like they just. And obviously they're going to play 2 deep safety on him. Well, then fine. Then you'll eat him up underneath on your offense. But just use him in what he does well, and he's going to be fine. But I also wanted to ask Matt, how many weeks before Aaron Rodgers punches him in the face for running the wrong route?
Yeah, I mean, maybe 1, right? Yeah. I do think that people have kind of got onto this narrative that Rodgers doesn't use rookie wide receivers, but every other time they've had a notable rookie wide receiver, there's been incredible wide receivers in front of them. Jordy was out there with I believe both Jennings and Driver. So I just I just think it's a different situation, and he's going to be on the field out of necessity, not just Rodgers is going to have to. He's going to have to use a rookie receiver. I just think that's all there is to it if they're going to be successful, unless they're just going to convert to a complete running game, which is, possible. Maybe they're just a play action running team next year.
So you're not seeing Sammy Watkins wide receiver one season
for like 4 games. For like 4 games, I think.
Just
Rodgers
week one,
will love him. Yeah,
I literally forgot he was even on that roster.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
I also do like it's been pointed out several times, but people say they just replaced Marquise Valdez-Scantling with Marquise Valdez-Scantling. And I think that's even when he was drafted, like they were showing up players that they were comping Christian Watson on the draft coverage. And one of them was MVS. And I mean, I see it. He's big, he's fast, and he runs in a straight line, so.
Hey, you need a bunch of receivers, so they've got one.
They got one.
Speaking of a team with a bunch of receivers, adding another one or adding another 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers added George Pickens. And I mean, I think this is the perfect landing spot for him. Is it a spot where he's going to come on and blow up and be Jamar Chase? No, definitely not. Like 100% not. But is this a spot for him to join a professional organization that can keep him in check, help him grow, help him mature, help him grow his game, and one day reach that potential? I think there's probably not many other organizations I trust more to do that. You look at these wide receiver contracts coming out. Deontay Johnson, are they going to pay him? I don't know. We'll see if they find one of these quarterbacks and they get that cheap quarterback for the next few years, or for the foreseeable future. And in Pickett's case, then he could step in a 1 or a number 2 role here within the next year or 2. So this is playing the long game. If you're sitting at the 112, this is a guy with a really high upside. You can be patient on. If you earn that 112, you're coming off the ship, you have a deep roster, you can stash him for a couple of years. If I've got a taxi squad, that's where he's going, and he'll likely sit there for the year. If we see anything from him this year, I'll be excited, but I won't plan on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about him too. And he's another guy, I think, that the ceiling is sky high, but the floor is very low. And we've heard a lot of stuff, off-field stuff too. We'll see if any of that pops up in the NFL. You heard that about Kadarius Toney as well, and that hasn't gone so well. So we'll see. But I'm going to recap the first round real quick. If you're watching, you can see the scroll at the bottom. For those listening, though, it was Breece Hall at 101, Garrett Wilson at 102. Drake London goes 3rd, Treylon Burks at 4, Jameis Williams at 5, Kenny Pickett at 6. Scott picking him higher than pretty much everybody else would. Chris Olave at 7, Kenneth Walker 108, Sky Moore at 9, James Cook 110, Christian Watson at 11, and then we finish up with George Pickens at 12, which brings us back to Matt at the 201.
Matt, you want to trade?
Actually, yeah, because there's this is like a cliff right here. What do you want to work out here, Shane?
I could give you my 204, and apparently the only other pick I have is a 210. That means I don't get to talk for a really long time. Okay, so I can offer you the 204 in this rookie draft and a random second rounder in the next rookie mock draft we're in.
If you have a guy you really like here, Shane, I'm happy to let you make this pick.
Okay,
let's do it. Shane's in at 201.
Matt gets a future second mock pick.
I'm just looking, making sure. Control F, Jahan. I'm spelling his name correctly. Yeah, I'll take Jahan Dotson here.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, first round draft capital, first half of the first round draft capital, getting super fine there and being really pedantic because he was 16th overall, and that's technically as half as you can get. So I'm gonna take the shot on Dotson, who I know not everyone likes, but he actually is pretty productive in college, right? He's pretty fast. He's not going to have to step. He's going to have Terry McLaurin on the other side of him, which is going to be helpful because that's obviously who the coverage is going to be drawn to. And then you also got Curtis Samuel, who will be good for something or another. But yeah, no, I'm really, if I can get a first round wide receiver in the second round, I'm going to do that.
Honestly, you should have taken him in the first where you took Cook and then taken Cook here, and we'd all be happier with
So
that.
here's the
that
thing.
order, so.
Agreed. You
Trust
screwed
me.
everything up, Shane.
I thought about Dotson there, but I've gotten Dotson. I've been in a few rookie drafts, and I've gotten him anywhere between like 107 and 202.
Yeah, I've seen him go around here in a lot of drafts. I'm not super high on Dotson, but this is a round where I take him 201, 202. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually at 110 if he's still floating out there, like because I have him right above like the Pickens and Watkins. If he's still floating out there, I'm furiously trying to trade into the first. Not doing it successfully in most leagues because most people are like, "Oh, how about a 23 first?" And I'm like, "Dude, you know better than that. Come on." But yeah, I like Dotson here. Sorry. Thanks, Matt. Good trade.
I have a
I
question.
can't wait to see that future mock where Matt gets the extra second.
Matt, was this would Dotson have been your pick?
Dotson would have been my pick at 110 or so. I would have taken him ahead of James Cook. I would have taken him ahead of Kenny Pickett, and I would have taken him ahead of probably Christian. No, maybe not Christian Watt. Maybe George Pickens. Somewhere in the 111, 112 range, which is weird because that's where I had him pre-draft, and you would think with higher draft capital than we anybody really suspected, he should move up, but he really hasn't. He's a late first guy.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean,
if Shane hadn't traded, you would have taken him here, though, given the way.
Yeah, he would have been. He would have been the pick there for sure.
so I wasn't
Good
going to get him anyway because he was my guy. I love John Dotson, by the way, and
Penn
for all of
State.
you, that's right. I mean, I watched all his games. And if you think I don't like Jalen Hurts, talk to me about Sean Clifford sometime because John Dotson produced with absolute terrible quarterback play. If
So
Penn
bad.
State had a quarterback, they would have been much more competitive in the Big Ten. They have one now, Drew Allar. But then Sean Clifford comes back for a 6th season. I
Can't get rid of this guy.
I
Is he a
can't.
doctor? Is he going to be a doctor? Because he's not going to be a football player.
he's
Better be
terrible.
something.
I do love John Dotson though. I would have been happy with him here. However, I do not get him, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take John Mechie. I like Mechie a lot. He's not a consolation prize if you can't get Jameson Williams, just like Chris Olave is not a consolation prize if you can't get Garrett Wilson. Olave, Mechie, these guys are both outstanding wide receivers. If they didn't have those upper echelon guys ahead of them, they would be thought of much higher. That being said, I think he has the fastest release off the line that I saw in this class. I think it won't be long until he is the wide receiver 1 in Houston. And I know that people don't really like Davis Mills, but you know what? He distributes the ball pretty decent. Clearly Houston likes him because they didn't draft a quarterback. So it's going to be his job for the foreseeable future. So pair him with some talent and let's see what happens. So I'm going Mechie and I'm thrilled to get him at the 2-2.
Go, Matt. Go.
No, I was just going to say, I just worry that he was never able to take over the number 1 role. No matter I understand all the great players ahead of him, but he's in the NFL now, so if he couldn't do it in college, I just don't see it in the NFL. So I think he's a nice floor player, but I see almost no ceiling there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to maybe go around and ask everyone's opinion because this is higher than I've seen him go in almost any draft. And for myself personally, I'm not a big fan. When I made little notes when I was watching the rookies, I put he's aggressively mediocre. So that's what it seems like.
I like that.
That's mine. That's how I describe myself on my dating profile.
Well,
it's just everything he does. It was like, okay, that was okay. But he's not awful at anything. But I don't know. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Mechie?
He's 21 on my board, and I think it's a floor play. I don't know. I think he'll be fine, but it's just one of those that he's always going to be your wide receiver 5 or 6 on a good roster. I just don't see him extending to being a number 1 target on a team. Reality, there's good wide receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kayshon Boutte coming out next year. I could see Houston dipping their toe and trying to get one of those guys. And I don't know how Brandon Cooks. He's still going to be there for a little bit. I just think Mechie is he's a rotational player, and so I'm lower on him.
So, Jeff, you said he's a 5 or 6 on a good roster. Luckily for me, I don't have any good rosters. So,
if he's your 3, good for you.
Got you, Jeff.
That's right.
Okay. Well, Jeff, we'll go to you at you're up at the 203 now.
I'm going to go with Trey McBride here. I think there's a pretty good gap between any other tight end. And if you're playing in tight end premium, I've got Trey McBride as a 112 right on my board. And I think that, I don't know, I think we got a little bit spoiled last year, not only with Kyle Pitts, but with Pat Freiermuth as well last year. And he's landing in Arizona. We know tight ends need a year or two. Zach Ertz's contract is set up perfectly for it to be an out in 2 years. And you could see Trey McBride be a consistently dynasty tight end 1 range, in that 2-year span, being paired to Kyler Murray, being paired with an offense that they used the tight end very heavily. When Zach Ertz arrived in the red zone, he really just took over that role in the Arizona offense. And so I just think McBride here, I think there's a little bit more ceiling than maybe is being recognized, because we kind of got a little bit spoiled on the immediate production out of tight end last year. And I think that when you're kind of looking at the gap between next tight ends, but also just kind of the fantasy landscape at tight end, I'm going to take him here in tight end premium league.
You mentioned he has a higher, like, how high do you think his ceiling is? Like that's the one thing I was wondering about him. Like I did not get to watch much of Trey McBride before the draft, and I from what I've heard, it seems like he'd fall more in that kind of tight end 1 range, but never the elite range. You think he can be one of those elite guys then?
I think he could scrape it. He could get pretty close to it. But I mean, he was Colorado State's entire offense, and college tight ends or colleges don't use tight end in their offense very often. We saw, Jeremy Ruckert's a weird case, but he was at Ohio State and they didn't use him at all. He's got receiving chops, but he was their entire, everybody was kind of scheming to stop Trey McBride, and he still was able to produce. And I just think it's a better landing spot than maybe people are recognizing, considering 12 months ago, we had written off Zach Ertz as being completely dead in Dynasty.
Yeah, and to your point, 90 catches for over 1,000 yards. That's insane college production for a tight end. So, but we are now to Matt at the 204 after our big trade. So,
and I still got a player that I like better than James Cook somehow. I'm going to take Rachaad White, JUCO transfer. Didn't get much work in his first season at Arizona State, but his production is pretty nice. This is per JJ Zacharyson because he's way smarter than I am. But since 2011, there have been 2 running backs that have had a best season reception share of 18%, a yards per team play rate of 2.2, and a speed score above 90. Those 2 players are Christian McCaffrey and Aaron Jones. Those are obviously like his absolute 100% ceiling. You probably can't get to either of those guys, especially in year 1 playing behind Fournette. But he's the best receiver in the class, even over James Cook, I think. Like James Cook, he can be split out wide, natural hands catcher. And as a runner, I think he's better. He certainly goes down on first contact more than I'd like to see, but he doesn't hesitate getting north-south. So he puts the foot in the ground and kind of goes. So we'll see if for some reason, Leonard Fournette has been pretty durable throughout his career, but he is getting up there. If there was for some reason he was to miss time, then I think Rachaad White's in for a big workload, even in year 1. If not, they can get out of the contract with Lenny in year 2 pretty easily. If Gio is healthy, he probably is going to take a chunk out of that pass catching role. I don't think we really have to worry about Keyshawn Vaughn anymore. So I like the fit. I like the player. You just might have to wait for year 2.
So this is another question now that it's come up. The third running back has come up. I was just curious. I wanted to go around the group because this is probably a thing a lot of people are thinking about in their drafts. Jeff, who is your RB3? Because I think almost universally everyone has Walker and Brees as 1 and 2.
I've got Cook as my RB3. I just think that, I don't know, I think we're underselling the potential for him to be used in the passing game in Buffalo and the home run ability in Buffalo as well.
Is everybody Cook 1 or RB3?
Yes.
Well, not Matt.
Not me, but everybody else.
Rachaad White.
It's a good place to be, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't remember if he said he would take White over Cook. Okay. Okay, my bad. Okay, so would you guys have White at 4?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, spicy.
I don't like Rachaad White at all. Sorry.
It would be your.
But I don't know what I'm talking about, so don't listen to me.
You took Kenny Pickett in the middle of the first.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
What the hell do I know? It's all right. I'll take my
I'm just kidding.
championships. It's fine.
My big concern on White is when it comes to the running game, because what Tampa does is they run a duo running scheme, and so they try to get double teams. They try to get the running back to the second level and let them make the decision against linebackers. And usually when White was in that situation in college, he would try to sprint to the outside. Like, he wasn't taking the linebacker on head to head. He wasn't trying to make a miss in the hole. He was just trying to bounce it out. And he's really got to make some major strides in that at the NFL level. And that's when he was bigger than the guys at the other level. And he's not going to be that anymore. And so I think the receiving is there, and it's very easy for, Bruce Arians, and you draw some parallels to David Johnson, and he's got that in the game. Reality, he could be as high of a ceiling as any running back in this class, but it's just that and being used in the running game in that scheme worries me a little bit.
Okay, so that brings it to me at the 205, and I pretty much knew who I was picking here before this started, because I almost knew he was going to be here, and I tend to be higher on him than most people. I'm going with David Bell at the 205.
Yep. That was my other pick.
I love me some David Bell. I love the tape. He was getting open all the time, good against zone. He's a pretty good route runner, despite his lack of speed, which he's now been killed for because of his combine. But we all saw that on the tape. But despite his lack of speed, he just gets open. And now he's going to be he's going to be probably the wide receiver too in Cleveland. We'll see. But he's got Deshaun tied to a good quarterback. He got the 3rd round draft capital, which is, I just wanted to see him go day 2. I was hearing some people, including Jeff, say that he was going to go day 3 and maybe late day 3. Yeah, it was close. But I heard other people say it as well. And to me, it's a victory that I heard some people say he fell to round 3. To me, I was happy just as long as he went day 2. That was good enough for me. And again, the landing spot, I don't think I could have, tied to Deshaun Watson. There's not a ton of other receiving options in that offense, and I just love the player. So David Bell for me at the 205. Curious, I've seen him go as late as 210. Does anybody think that would you be waiting even longer than this, or is this a round where you'd be taking David Bell as well?
No, you know what? This right here is I can crow about how much smarter I was than everyone else to take David Bell at 205. But it's the perfect spot where if I take him at 205 and he busts, it doesn't really hurt.
Yeah.
If it hits, I can guarantee you I'm going to point out to everyone. I'm going to point them to everything I said about David Bell before the combine. After the combine, I'm going to just be like, don't notice that. But what I said about him before the combine, loved him. I mean, how do you not love his production? The only thing he's just not an athlete, which, he's not great for a football player, but we've seen relatively poor athletes before, so it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and the kind of easy comp a lot of people have made is not the exact same player, but Keenan Allen in terms of an unathletic, not a super athletic guy who also went in the 3rd round and is going to have a great career. I think that's probably his ceiling, but I think he's the kind of guy who's going to just be at least a steady kind of low end to mid 2 at least for years, just because he's just a good football player. That's how I look at it.
So I have a question on him. Like, if he had gone 9 picks later, would you still take him at the 205?
I probably would, just because I was so high on him pre-draft, and especially if he went at the top of the 4th round. It does make me feel a little more comfy to know that he has 3rd round draft, and I believe he was Cleveland's first pick too. Which shows
I think they took a corner, or they took
the 2nd pick.
I believe they had another pick before that.
Okay,
I don't know. I just think,
but yeah.
I see it. But the Browns, they don't run a lot of they don't run a lot of 11 personnel. They run one of the lowest 11 personnel schemes in the league. They do a lot of 2 tight ends. They do a lot of 2 running backs using Kareem Hunt kind of in that slot role a little bit. And I just think it plays into Deshaun Watson's game to use those extra tight ends, load up with Nick Chubb and kind of have that a little bit more protection, and then allow Donovan Peoples-Jones or allow Amari Cooper to attack downfield vertically, because Deshaun Watson's one of the best deep ball throwers in the game. And so that's kind of where I have questions on. Yeah, he profiles great to a big slot, but can he win outside? And are the Browns going to really use that big slot quite a bit? I don't know. I've got questions on that.
All fair, all fair. So now we're on to Scott at the 206.
I was so excited to talk about David Bell. So
you can talk about David Bell before.
Now I've got just a bunch of trash here to choose from. So I'm going to go ahead and just double down on my shitty quarterback strategy. And I'm going to take Desmond Ridder because Mariota is terrible and Ritter's going to see the field at some point, and I will be able to trade him for more than the 206.
Okay. So Ridder is terrible, but you're going to take him. Okay.
Yes. Works every time. 70% of the time.
Okay. I believe Matt still has his 207 pick after that trade. So Matt.
I get my trade pick. I thought that was next year. I'll stay at quarterback. I'll take my quarterback too. And honestly, if Pickett wasn't drafted in the first round, he probably would still be my quarterback one, and that's Malik Willis. The upside that we all fell in love with and had people taking him at the 101 or 2 in pre-draft Superflex leagues is still there. He's just a third-round pick now, and he's behind Ryan Tannehill. And, we'll see how long that lasts. I believe they can get out of Tannehill's contract after next season. So I think it's conceivable that if the Titans are terrible because they're thin everywhere, they're thin at basically every single position, to be honest with you. If they're terrible towards the end of the season, it's probably not going to happen so much because of the division they play in. But I think you could see Willis spot start some games towards the end of the season. And if they are just in a kind of a rebuild mode after this year, when Derrick Henry's another year older, when Robert Woods is 33 years old or however old he's going to be, I just think there's not going to be an opportunity for Tim to at least compete next season for the starting job if Tannehill isn't in the picture. So that upside that we still loved is there, and to get him in the late second, I think is still a pretty good move in Superflex leagues after when we're in this kind of tier of players.
Kind of crazy, 102 to 207. I did want to ask you guys, this was another one of my questions I wanted to do when the guys came up. Is this where everybody would be taking those third round quarterbacks that we all thought were going to go higher? 205, 206, 207, right around there?
Malik Willis, I'm willing to take right about where Matt did, maybe a little later. Desmond Ridder, somewhere in the third round. Matt Corral, somewhere in the third round.
So I will say, I've not, in the 15 drafts I'm currently in, there's a couple that haven't made it this far, but Ritter's never made it to 206.
Really? Why do people like Ridder? Can you explain Ridder to me? Because I don't get him at all. I feel like
I think he's terrible. I don't get him either.
Bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. On our previous pod, I called him a poor man Zach Wilson, and I hate Zach Wilson.
Oh, no, he's much worse than Zach Wilson.
I feel like he has the least clear path to being a starter of all these guys.
I feel he has probably the most or second most easily. Atlanta's going to be terrible, and Mariota's terrible, so they're going to put him on the field.
But he's better than Darnold.
Okay.
So Corral is going to start.
You're saying Corral? Okay.
I think I'd rather have Corral than him, and then for upside, I'd rather.
I'd say it's pretty even. Yeah. I mean, I like Corral, so maybe I should go with that. But either way, any one of those guys, they're all interchangeable.
Ritter's like one of the most athletic quarterbacks at the combine, like ever. I mean, he was 18th in relative athletic score out of like nearly 200 quarterbacks. I just think people are underselling his rushing a little bit there, and I think he's a little bit more polished when it comes to decision making. I don't know, the processing's slow, and that's a problem, and that's probably why he fell down. But he's got a lot of experience playing football, and that rushing is there. It's there for fantasy.
Okay, so Mike, do you any comments on any of these quarterbacks that we've all been talking about, and then you can go into your pick at 208?
I do have a comment. Can we stop showing the draft picks at their house, sweating out, waiting to get picked? Like, can we just not do that anymore?
How about Malik is invited to the draft and gets picked in the third. Is it the guy invited to the draft ever fell to the third round?
I don't know. And also,
impressive.
Can we only have the commissioner or a representative from the NFL make the pick, please? Just get up there.
I want
you on stage.
Yes.
No, I want Ed Marinara.
I want him announcing every pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there was like it was like late day 2, I think it was. Some guy came up for the Vikings and like started giving a speech, and it was just like, dude, you're up there for like 5 minutes, man. Like, just read a name and let's go.
That was his chance at glory, man. He went for it. I love it.
Ed Marinaro.
Is that who it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. It extended the draft, right? I want the draft to last as long
I mean,
as
the
possible,
anticipation. Is he going to announce it? Nope. He's got more story. Wait, is he going to do it? Oh, nope. We're still going.
But here's
You
the
knew
thing.
from the
When
second he stepped to the podium, it was going for like 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, he had that look in his eye, like, yeah, I'm never gonna get this chance again. And I got to be honest with you, if I was
we're all talking about him right now. We're all talking about him right now.
True. But when he said, when I was drafted 50 years ago, I'm like, here we go. This is going to be a long time ago. Hey, listen, Ritter has a shot. That's the thing. And whether you like him or not, if he has a shot to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, you have to pay attention. Let him have a good game or two, and you move him if you don't like him. That being said, all this time until my pick, and I still don't know if I want Tyquan Thornton or Velus Jones. So,
oh wow, jeez, oh come on, man.
That Thornton pick is maybe one of the worst in NFL history.
I am going to take Brian Robinson.
Strange.
Sorry. I'm going to take Brian Robinson from the Commanders. You know, one of the tweet groups that I was forced to be into that I did not sign up for, people were sharing like, oh, you know, Washington's saying this about Antonio Gibson, that they don't like this and that, blah, blah, blah. Listen, Brian Robinson is not flashy, but he does everything well enough. He can catch. He's not the best. He runs between tackles. He runs hard. He's an efficient running back. I think he's good for the Washington system. And, you know, Gibson's going to be coming up on a contract soon, I believe. So it could be very well could be his backfield with maybe some Jarrett Patterson sprinkled in too. And there is still J.D. McKissick there as well. They did match the Bills' offer, I believe. So it's going to be interesting, but I think the 1-2 punch is going to mostly be Gibson and Robinson.
Yeah, that's what Rivera said. He wants Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams. So we'll see how that goes.
But those guys are both way bigger than Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, right? Like,
that's what I was going to say. D'Angelo was a tiny little dude. He was 4'3".
Yeah, like
Stewart
and Robinson are
good size.
They're big dudes. So
yeah, but Stewart was a big dude, wasn't he? Or
he was.
He was
5'9",
240, 5'10", 240.
Yeah, he was.
Wow, that is a big guy.
Okay, I didn't think he was that big. Okay.
I didn't think he was that big either. That's big.
And he was fast. He was built differently than other human beings. And D'Angelo, anyway, I'm sorry. These are these guys from 15 years ago that aren't going to help us.
I know.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I was just saying, Rivera came out. I think it was today, that quote that he wants them to be a 1-2 punch like that, where they're both kind of equal time in the backfield. So Robinson could be a sneaky good guy this year. So we will move on to 209, which is Jeff.
Yeah, so this is a pick that I'm going to go. I've moved this guy way up my board. I've listened to smart analytics people like Jacob Sanderson has kind of worked his way into my brain on Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be my pick. And I think that's, he went 43 in the draft. And I think that we can't, I don't know. It's kind of where I push back on David Bell going 99th in the draft. Wan'Dale Robinson going 43, like in this range. I think you just got to take him as a guy that I have questions about him. Really, can he handle volume as a wide receiver role? But, this is one of those that he was a running back too. And we see the talk about James Cook, where the NFL is getting a little bit more versatile and players that can create in different situations. He's that type of player. And so he can win outside as a receiver. You can split him in your backfield and if you wanted to. And I think that I'll just go with him there.
And just my thing with, I know Wan'Dale went, he's not a guy I was super high on before the draft. And Tyquan Thornton also went in the second round. So that would be my answer to that. But
Wan'Dale is this year's Kadarius Toney for me.
It feels like a direct shot.
But I'm not going to have
Toney, honestly.
Yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing that he's this year's Kadarius Toney?
Yeah, so I had zero shares in 47 leagues, so that should pretty much tell you everything.
He probably got the playbook before Kadarius did.
But, I'll have a couple of Robinson, like some best ball leagues, whatever. I don't hate him like I hate Toney, but yeah.
By the way, the Patriots had the worst draft Just want to throw that
Well,
out.
I want to also say that I hate the Patriots for taking like 4 of the running backs that I really liked, and they were just like, "Yeah, we're gonna just
crushed them.
screw this guy." And you like Kevin Harris too? Oh no,
Yep.
no, don't worry about
See
that.
ya.
We're gonna kill him
Does
too.
anyone like Kevin Harris?
Yes,
I
like
don't
Kevin
mind
Harris.
Kevin Harris.
Thought he was
He has. I
bland.
think he's intriguing. Yeah.
he was one of those late round, like he was one of those guys I was looking at, like, oh, this is gonna be a 3rd round running back that I love to grab, and then. The Patriots were like, well, no, first we're going to draft Pierre Strong. And I'm like, all right, I can live with that. Damian Harris will be gone next year probably. And then they're like, we're going to add Kevin Harris to this too. And I'm like, I hate you, Bill.
So now you hope he's the 3rd stringer next year, Kevin Harris. Okay, so Shane, we are back to you at the 210.
I mean, look, so if I was betting just on draft capital, I guess I go with Alec Pierce. But everyone that's ever mentioned him has mentioned how bad he is at football, at catching. So I look, and this is a reach too, but at the end of the 2nd round, and I don't get to pick again, I'm going to take Damian Pierce. If anyone's going to get a chance to be a starter in their backfield besides Breece Hall, it's going to be this dude, because he's only got to beat out Rex Burkhead and the remnants of Marlon Mack. So I'm just going to take a shot on him here at 211. Like I said, 210, sorry. 210. I was thinking Alec Pierce, like I said, because of draft capital, but I like grabbing running backs in this range.
Yeah, and that's about as low as I've seen him go in almost any draft. Actually, I've seen people going way higher on early 2nd on Damian Pierce, just because of he's going to start for the Texans thing, the Marlon Mack slander that's out there. So, I think that's perfectly fine at 210. So that brings it to me at 211. I'm also going to go running back, and I'm going to take Isaiah Spiller, another guy that we liked a whole lot before this whole draft process began. And then he tested, and it did not go well, and he got drafted in the 4th round. But we're at 211. I'm willing to take the risk. I liked him a lot prior to. I still liked him even after the comics. I don't weigh the combine as heavily as a lot of people do, and I just like the tape. He was definitely a very good shifty running back. I liked him in space. He was able to make people miss. And I don't think the landing spot's too bad. I mean, it's you'd rather see him go day 2, but he's in a great offense. Eckler's 27, going to be 28, and even this year, I think he's going to definitely contribute. Maybe 5 to 10 carries somewhere in there. And if Eckler has not been the healthiest guy in the world either, so maybe you get a nice little bump this year and get some production from him if you want to hold on to him. So at 211, I think that's perfectly a fine guy to take. So that is who I'm taking, Isaiah Spiller.
So I just wanted to throw this out here. So imagine you did a mock draft about 3 months ago before the combine. Isaiah Spiller could have easily been your 102, 103. Malik Willis was your 101. Meanwhile, we're just
mid to late 2nd for both of them now. Yeah.
Heavy team. Yeah.
Okay, so that we are up to Scott to finish off the draft here.
All right. Well, I really wanted to take Matt Corral, just take another shitty quarterback, but I think we'll
do it, Scott.
We've concluded that narrative. So, what? I'll throw in another guy here that, why not? Zamir White, Josh Jacobs. They declined the 5th-year option on him, which is interesting, but I guess, hey, they're running backs. So, and Drake should be gone after this year too. So we could be looking at the future Damian Harris role in Las Vegas there for Zamir White next year.
Okay, so that finishes up the 2nd round, which is going to finish up our draft. I'll again recap the 2nd round for the podcast listeners. It's 201 Jahan Dotson, 202 John Mechie, going 3rd Trey McBride, at the 4th spot Rashad White, 205 David Bell, 206 Desmond Ridder, 7th Malik Willis, 8 Brian Robinson, 9 Wan'Dale Robinson, back-to-back Robinsons, 210 Damian Pierce, me taking Spiller at 11, and then Scott finishing us off with Zamir White. So real quick before we finish up, I just like to go around. Any guys? I'll start with Matt and kind of go around clockwise on my screen. Matt, Any guys that we did not get to draft here that you like in that third and fourth round range? You got maybe a sleeper type kind of guy.
I'll throw out two guys. One, Tyler Algier. Is Cordero Patterson going to be the main running back, the RB1, so to speak? Maybe, but we saw him wear down towards the end of the season. I know Algier is a 5th round pick, but I think he has the size and the burst and all those kinds of things that you like to see from a lead back in a committee. So he might have some appeal in year one, and if you can get a single start out of him from a 3rd round pick, late 2nd round pick, then I think you're doing pretty well for yourself there. And then Jelani Woods, I think, is a mountain of a man, and I think that's going to be really fun in Indianapolis. If they have any 12 personnel with both him and Mo Alley Cox out there, that could be really fun. So I'll throw those two guys out.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I got a couple. If in case Debo moves on, Danny Gray got drafted by the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
I like him a lot. He's actually my favorite SMU wide receiver that I saw. A lot of people liked Reggie Roberson. I think he was a UDFA for the Titans. And a guy that I actually don't like, but I don't want to ignore the draft capital, and New York's really thin at the position, is Daniel Bellinger, tight end from San Diego State. I thought he was okay, really good on screens, which could be interesting, seeing as Daniel Jones not a very good quarterback. So if you get Daniel Bellinger on screens, could be pretty good. And I like him as I've seen him going in the 4th, sometimes 5th rounds of mocks that I've been doing. So he's a really good late round dart throw. And also Cade Otton in case Gronk doesn't come back.
Okay. Shane, you got anybody?
I appreciate everyone taking. All right. Well, instead of one guy, I'm going to name 15.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
Screw those dudes behind us.
Jeff, I left you for last since you're the Debbie guy. You should be able to dig deep.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go a little deeper. I love Zeus, probably just because I loved him going back to high school. And Josh Jacobs is a perfectly adequate, good running back. But there's no reason Zeus can't come in there and get some run. He's a different type of back, so I'd love to see Zeus. And Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, if anyone was thinking about Jalen Tolbert, too bad I grabbed him. Jalen Tolbert, again, I like him, like his situation. It's good when you like the player and the situation, not just one or
exactly.
the other. When it's just one, you're like, well, I just like the situation. It's probably not going to bode well. But I like the match there, and I like him as a player.
Okay, Jeff, you're up.
All right, so Tyrion Davis-Price, he's fast enough to actually play in the San Francisco scheme, and he's like almost 40 pounds heavier than Elijah Mitchell. I don't think we can ignore Kyle Shanahan taking him in the 3rd round. I think that could create some very real madness on who he's playing week to week. I think Pierre Strong kind of profiles easily into James White's replacement next year. We talked about New England taking all the running backs, but I kind of land there on him. I will go wide receiver. Give me, I don't know. He's a meme at this point, and it's kind of ridiculous. But Velus Jones Jr. is, if you watch his tape, there are a lot of things that translate to the NFL level on his tape.
Oh,
and I know
please.
he's like 25 years old, but there is so much opportunity. I mean, when people are losing their mind over Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, he went nearly a round higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, I think there's some comparables to that situation where there is there's opportunity in that Chicago wide receiver room right now.
And Tron Dave in the chat mentions Romeo Dubs is. What do you guys think of him, Jeff? And Matt, I'm curious your thoughts as a Packers fan.
He's a good wide receiver. I just don't know if he's. I don't know.
Yeah, 4th round. Can he contribute? Or I like Shakur.
Big body downfield receiver. I mean, I like. There's clearly some openings in the Green Bay target tree.
Maybe better football than fantasy.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so that's gonna finish up our draft here. I want to thank everybody for coming on. We're gonna go around again. This time, just you can, like I said, I was going to give you guys all a chance to plug your crap at the end of the show, so we're gonna plug our crap. So, Mike, go for it.
My name is Michael Bauer. You can find me on Twitter at Rewind CEO. I am the host of the Dynasty Rewind. Would love to see you, well, not commenting because we don't live stream, But you can hit me up on Twitter and say hello. We also have a Patreon. If you are inclined to give us $1 a month, you could hop in our Discord server, and you could also talk to Scott and Shane in there too. So yeah,
That's right.
hang out.
And speaking of Shane, go for it.
I'm on just follow me on Shane is the worst. I got links to most of the podcasts and sites that I write for. But hey, if you want to join my Patreon, no, it's not mine technically, but it's mine, Dynasty Trades HQ. Join that Patreon and stuff.
Okay, Jeff.
You can find me on Twitter for whom J Bell tolls, the number 4. You can find me with Football Guys, where I'm the Dynasty lead somehow. I don't know. I'm a lucky guy. But and then you can find me with the Devi Royale on Tuesday nights at 9:30, where we dive in through college football. We've got a lot of episodes up going through this rookie class. You can find us on YouTube. And this week we're done. We're going back to college football next week. So that's going to be fun.
Okay, Matt, finish us up.
All my stuff's over at DLF, Twitter at MattPriceFF. I co-host the DLF Dynasty podcast with Ryan McDowell and Dan Myler. He would be upset if I forgot his name, considering I just hung out with him all weekend. But yeah, everything's at DLF. Find me on Twitter. Let's talk some football. Never hesitate to send me a question if you have a question.
Okay, I want to again thank all 4 of you for coming on. This was a lot of fun doing this. Like I said, having 6 guys on, having a lot of different viewpoints. I really appreciate you guys, and this was a lot of fun. So, Scott, I think that finishes up. Why don't you take us out?
Yeah, I will say we have a lot of people on this show, and each and every one of these guys I've listened to or read for probably many years now for most of them. So it was awesome to have them all on here at the same time. Appreciate you guys again. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody in the chat, awesome. So glad you're here. Love the comments, love the interaction. Good stuff. Don't forget to rate and review, DAP Network, all that. And with that being said, for Shane is the worst, for whom J Bell tolls, for Matt Price, for Michael Bauer, for Rocky, and for Andrew, who's not here tonight, I'm Scott Sidlow. Junkies out.